So Neil in the chat right now, he asks a very pointed, intelligent question. WEN moon question mark.
Yes, that's what the people want to know.
So after talking all about that and
yeah, I mean, end of the day, right? It all just comes down to money printer go brr. Does it not? Welcome back to Bitcoin.com's Token Narratives, where we discuss the biggest stories shaping the Bitcoin and cryptoverse. My name's Graham Stone, and I'm repping the marketing function over here at Bitcoin.com. I'm joined by David Sencil, the news and research gigabrain, and we're live here at the Bitcoin.com studio in Shibuya, Tokyo, Japan.
Shibuya.
Not the Bitcoin.com studio, not the Charlie Kirk Bitcoin.com studio in Phoenix, Arizona. This is the original Bitcoin.com studio. And we're really excited to be discussing here today. Has Bitcoin decoupled from traditional markets? David.
The question du jour.
The question du jour. Has Bitcoin decoupled? It seemed that that was the case. At first, it didn't seem like it was the case, but then it did seem like it was the case. So we had equities, U.S. stocks continuing to drop at the same time that we had Bitcoin actually increasing in value. Okay. However, it wasn't long after that equities also started to rise. And not only that, but everything else in crypto besides Bitcoin also rose even more than the price of Bitcoin. So the way I'm looking at it right now, I'm just not seeing the decoupling. Do you have any thoughts on this, David?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I'd also add just like historical precedent wise. This Bitcoin decoupling thing has been around since I joined crypto in 2017, when Bitcoin was significantly cheaper, right? It's a hedge. It's a hedge against monetary fiat debasement. It's digital gold. It's going to do what gold does. Been said for a long time, and I do think we'll eventually get there. I'm just skeptical that we're there already, and I don't want to like be perennially a wet blanket. I think it will happen, but I think it'll happen slowly. And I think a lot of what you're seeing right now is not convincing, at least to me. So
okay.
Those would be my overall thoughts. As to like the specifics of the price movements, yeah, right. Like, I think Bitcoin has done well. I think you could probably ascribe it doing well to other things than that people are piling into it as a hedge against, a risk or fiat debasement, or as a safe haven. Right? We like we've talked about many times before. We spent, I think, a lot of an episode talking about how institutions are piling in. Right? The Saylor MicroStrategy, formerly known as MicroStrategy strategy has been shown effective. And then Metaplanet here in Japan has followed that up and shown that it is not just a fluke; it's really effective. And so you're probably seeing just like a pile in of tons of other companies doing this. ETF flows, blah blah blah, things like that can also explain why it's doing well. It doesn't have to be this kind of like almost philosophical reason as a decoupling hedge against blah 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 and all this kind of stuff. So I don't know.
On that note of the Bitcoin corporate treasury, like this is certainly one of the buyers right? And we had this announcement a day ago that there's a new firm being launched. 21 is what it's being called. And they've got 42,000 BTC on the balance sheet already. It's backed by SoftBank, Tether, what else? Bitfinex, SoftBank, Tether, Bitfinex, and Cantor Equity Partners, which is the business formerly run by Howard Lutnick, now run by his son, that banks Tether.
It custodies Tether's treasury bonds.
And amongst other financial activities, it's a well-respected business. So these four businesses have come together, and they're launching a first of its kind, whereas the other Bitcoin corporate treasury businesses have like pivoted from something that was, I don't know, a failing software intelligence business, like a MicroStrategy. This one is launched purpose-made with the goal of accumulating more Bitcoin, and they've already got 42,000 on the balance sheet, worth nearly $4 billion. In the press release announcing the formation of this, they said they've already raised $585 million via equity financing and convertible notes to purchase additional Bitcoin. So another player entering the Bitcoin corporate treasury market or strategy.
Does this make you feel? To me, this feels. I'm not going to say toppy, but we're starting to get.
Feels a bit dirty to me.
It feels like too many of these companies are going to pile into it, and then if there's some reason that Bitcoin goes down, or there's some kind of deleveraging event, you might get like a reflexive move downward.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, that's just from being around a couple cycles, and when you see tons and tons of companies jump in and do the same trade over and over and over again,
yeah,
it just starts to feel like, maybe can this keep working for everybody?
Yeah. I mean, on the Bitcoin corporate treasury strategy, to me, it makes sense to have at least one of these businesses in every major capital market. But I don't understand the value of having multiple of them in a single capital market. Like, the reason to me it makes sense to have one in each capital market is because it's the vehicle in that capital market that allows a certain pool of capital to get access to Bitcoin that it wouldn't otherwise be able to get access to. Once you've got one player in that market, I just don't understand why you need more.
It's not just that, because there are ETFs, right? We talked a little bit about this before, but it's basically non-recourse leverage is what they say, right? Like you get like non-recourse leverage access to Bitcoin, which basically means that it's very hard to lose money. I guess you still can lose money, but if just getting access to Bitcoin is not enough, and you want a little, you want to go a little more farther out in the risk curve, this is a very safe way to do that. And so, yeah, I mean, but I would largely agree with you, right? You don't need that many companies in each different market to do this. The other side to this, though, is what we've talked about is once you get like a Sailors, formerly known as MicroStrategy's, size gets large enough, then the premium on that starts to collapse versus the amount that they're holding.
Yeah.
And so you could argue that it could be, if you want to be like risky, you could just keep doing this with small companies, ballooning out their balance sheet until it reaches a certain size, and then do it again and again and again. Because like, what was it? A couple episodes we talked about Metaplanet's stock price went up 2,000% since last year.
Yeah.
I guarantee you, no matter what Bitcoin's price does from now till 1 year from now, it would be, the chances that the stock is going to go up another 2,000% are much smaller, I think, because they have so much Bitcoin already. And so, yeah, it could go up a lot, but that'll compress over time, I imagine.
Okay. So just going back to this question of has Bitcoin decoupled? Okay. So it feels like we're leading in the direction of not quite yet. It's not out of the question, but
let me ask you a question.
We're just looking at some short-term price action here, and it's kind of noise at this point. So don't get ahead. Don't get on top over your ski. Don't get too over your skis, as they say.
We both consume a lot of crypto media, not just the one we make, but a lot of the people that I've been listening to have been talking about this, like supposed decoupling.
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of them are way more optimistic about it than I am. I don't know. Have you had that feeling yourself?
Yeah, definitely. I'm quite skeptical of the idea of a decoupling. Like in the long term, I do. I mean, that's my hope.
Yeah.
But I'm just not seeing it right now. Yeah.
So what do you make of the fact that people you follow are way more optimistic about it than yourself?
Yeah.
What do you make of that dynamic? Because I don't know how I feel about it myself, because I am also very skeptical, and I follow these people and I think they're very smart and do that. But again, I'm like, Again, so anyway, it's just something that I'm considering and trying to wrestle with.
Yeah. I guess my inclination would just be a cynical one that like the people I listen to, the KOLs are just trying to, like, they're just bull posting basically.
Yeah.
Because that's what gets the engagement. So
insert Simpsons meme.
Insert Simpsons meme.
Am I wrong? No, they're all wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they are all wrong. They are.
All right. So I think it might be interesting to discuss here for a few minutes what happens in a few different scenarios.
All right.
Okay.
Lay them
out.
Dude, take this off the.
Okay.
I want to be able to see myself. See my beautiful self.
In one scenario, the global macroeconomic monetary world order continues to deteriorate.
Okay.
And you continue to get a move away from the US dollar, a move away from like so-called US exceptionalism. How does Bitcoin perform in that environment?
Man, so I mean, you have two things. Part of that, right? You have this. We just got done talking about the decoupling not happening.
Yeah.
So part of if the U.S. Is sunsetting and the dollar's primacy is weakening, then I would say you probably might see a decoupling of some sorts, maybe long term. But over the short term, I would just imagine that Bitcoin kind of goes down or stays flat like everything else. I guess. But then on the other side, you have like, I think that would, if that happens kind of in the short to medium term, you would probably see a recession.
Yeah.
Right. So like U.S. recession. And that would probably cause recessions everywhere else.
So what does a recession mean for the price of Bitcoin?
Yeah, I think it would go down. That's my personal take on it, right?
So
like everything.
Not a decoupling.
Not a decoupling. Not a decoupling. Not a decoupling.
Okay.
Right? Because now again, you get these narratives that come into play, right? Like we've talked about. And one thing that could happen that maybe is not necessarily like connected to reality, though, is if Bitcoin were to kind of stay flat, and we have a recession, then you do have the chances of this become like a self-fulfilling prophecy. I just think it's really low, though. I don't know. What do you think?
A self-fulfilling prophecy, as in
This is a
Bitcoin
safe haven.
becomes a safe haven asset. Yeah, like no, I think it's a possibility. And actually, like I'm kind of like betting on that possibility. So that's why a big part of why I hold Bitcoin for that scenario.
For that narrative to finally take hold.
Yes. But then I also hold Bitcoin because the other scenario is also true, right? If there's if U.S. dollar primacy stays fine, if U.S. exceptionalism continues to be the thing that's happening, I mean, like the global economy is just doing great. Bitcoin still does good in that environment. So I don't know. Like we've talked about this a lot. Like it's the ultimate chameleon asset, and I feel like if things get worse, Bitcoin wins. If things get better, Bitcoin wins.
Yeah,
that's just how I look at the asset. Yeah,
it is the original meme coin, and as you say, it can take on lots of token narratives as needed to kind of, I would say, capture attention and have a value proposition.
Yeah.
In that regard, I think so. I would agree with you largely. If things go badly, I would imagine Bitcoin goes down a little bit, but over the long run, it'll kind of take hold. And if things go great, it'll go great. What about if things stay like how they are now, kind of in tension? Uncertainty remains relatively. Uncertainty doesn't go up, but it persists. Right? No trade deals come. The trade wars kind of stick around where they are now. Tariffs 20 to 40%.
Yeah, I mean the like that's the sort of the bad situation. That's a continuation of this idea that the global order is breaking apart. And yeah, I do think Bitcoin will eventually perform well in that scenario. So,
is there any scenario where Bitcoin doesn't do well? I can think of one.
What is it?
The security budget doesn't get dealt with.
Yes.
Or some kind of technological challenge like that.
Yeah.
And then I think it'll.
Well, okay. This let's have this discussion because people have long said that Bitcoin could replace the U.S. dollar as the reserve currency.
No.
And I think it doesn't seem likely. Okay, it doesn't seem likely that the U.S. dollar is going to lose its global reserve currency status. Why, David?
Well, I would change that a little bit. I would say that eventually the dollar probably, it will lose its global reserve status. I just don't think Bitcoin makes a good global reserve currency, like full stop.
Yes.
Right, just like almost definitionally.
And this is because of the fact that it has a fixed supply.
Exactly, right? Like, it's still inflationary at this point, but yeah, it has a fixed supply. And as we were talking about earlier, basically, you want to. It's better to have a slightly inflationary supply that kind of matches. Ideally, it would exactly match GDP growth, as in the amount of value in the world gets represented by an additional amount of new money to represent that value.
Mm-hmm.
Right. The point is you don't want to have new value being created in this world with the same amount of things to denominate that value, right? In this case, money, because what happens then is the things in the world actually lose value,
Yeah.
Right? They have to, because there's not enough money to
So the result is that there's less economic activity. People are less inclined to spend their money to create businesses, take risks, because why would you when you can just sit on your money and it'll just increase in value, right? So that's bad for growth. It's bad for it creates a stagnant economy or
deflationary spiral. This is the I think in economics this is the number one boogeyman.
Yeah.
It's not an inflationary spiral, which is obviously terrible. The number one worst scenario apparently is a deflationary one.
Yeah.
Right. And if you had Bitcoin be the global reserve currency, and like I was telling you before, just imagine that we get this kind of robotic revolution, right? Where you really get this just huge step function up in productivity, robots building smaller robots, building everything. You get these crazy gains in productivity, lots of new value in the world, almost untold amounts of value, right? Meteors being, repurposed, all this kind of stuff. And you only have 21 million Bitcoin. I don't care that it can be broken up into so many small pieces.
Yeah.
All that new value has to get captured in the same amount of money. And that just doesn't work very well.
So the problem with Bitcoin as a global reserve currency is just fundamentally that the fixed supply doesn't work well for that. However, it does have a lot of good points as a global reserve currency, namely it's not controlled by any single government, right? And this is kind of the one of the problems that the world seems to be having right now with the US dollar as the global reserve currency, is that people are kind of being upset about being bullied here or the perception of being bullied by the US, like throwing its weight around. People, like when Russia invaded Ukraine, of course, we had the Russia's reserves being seized by the US, and that went a long way to discrediting the trustworthiness of the US dollar as a reserve currency. Now, so Bitcoin, that's one of the problems it solves, right? It's not controlled by any one government. So if only there was a way to keep that characteristic of Bitcoin, but then also solve some of these other problems, like talking about the fixed supply problem, right? If you could just change the Bitcoin protocol to have a moderate inflation, maybe then it could actually be a global reserve currency.
I would actually push back on that, and this will probably get me a lot of hate from Bitcoin maxis and maybe I don't know, Austrian economists, but you want a government to have control over the currency. I think that's a good thing. What you don't want is the government to do a bad job stewarding the currency. But you want fundamentally as a society, you grant the government the power to make certain rules on behalf of everybody. And I would say having pretty strong control over the money is a good thing. Now, again, is the U.S. doing a good job of stewarding the money right now? Probably not. As you mentioned, the seizing of foreign assets, I think that's terrible. But no, I would say that you would always want a responsive ruling body to adjust to that, and that's number one. Number two, you have to, whenever you talk about money, whether it's Bitcoin is one thing, but like the US dollar or any other fiat currency, you have to always do it in comparison to what. Now, so people are upset that the US is bullying them. This is true, undoubtedly true. Is China going to be less of a bully? Does anyone think that? No,
right.
There's no way.
That's what I'm saying. Rather than it being a single government, you use a neutral asset like Bitcoin, and then who controls that? The people.
Okay, but how do you? I mean, then you get into the whole dynamics of that, and
it's complicated, right?
But also you have cultural things. So, like for
Yeah.
example, Americans or people in Western countries might want to prioritize different things versus another group of people who, like Europeans, seem to really want to. They seem to really focus on kind of these social programs and social welfare.
Yeah.
Americans, we don't want that,
Okay.
mostly. So I mean, anyway, and that should affect kind of the monetary and fiscal policy of that group of people, which would be reflected in their currency.
Okay, but maybe this is a dumb question, but do we need a reserve currency?
You do need a reserve currency because you want to be able to efficiently trade between regional currencies, right? And so the all the global reserve currency basically is kind of the what's it called, the numeraire. It's everything is priced in that terms, right? Like, so for example, you hear about like India and China are trading in rupees and yuan. Yes, denominated in dollars. The numeraire is still dollars, right? They're looking at the oil. They're like, okay, I'm going to send this oil. Let's see, how much yuan do I need to get? Let me find out what the dollar amount of that is per barrel, and then get the yuan exchange rate for that. So anyway, for an efficient market, you would like to have one currency or something like that common currency that you can swap in and swap out of. Kind of like how do you remember in 2017, in almost all
priced in ETH or Bitcoin.
It was priced in Bitcoin mostly, right? And then it moved. Now everything is priced in dollars, right? And those trading pairs like BTC ETH, or BTC Tron or this kind of thing. It's not done anymore. And it's more efficient to have just like one thing. And that thing is the thing that you can jump in and jump out of from any place.
Right.
So I would say it's a common thing, common situation. One other thing, let me just ramble on for a second, is a lot of people in crypto, especially, they think that that America foisted the dollar upon the rest of the world, and that we're kind of keeping everybody locked into this dollar system. That's not true. That is not true. If you read the history of the euro dollar market, which I've talked about a little bit about before, you'll see that the Europeans, in this case, they did it by themselves. In fact, they did it without permission. They started using dollars and creating.
We're seeing the same thing right now with stablecoins.
Yeah, basically, right?
Yeah. The new euro dollar is Tether.
Yeah, exactly, right. And it's because it's just more efficient, right? And so the U.S. is not like some kind of I don't know, 59D chess cabal that's projecting this is how we get like a spider into every little nook and crack in the web, and mixed metaphors.
I'm convinced Bitcoin never going to be the world's reserve currency, but still going to the moon, right?
Yeah. So Neil in the chat right now, he asks a very pointed, intelligent question. WEN moon ?
Yes, that's what the people want to know.
So after talking all about that, and
I mean, end of the day, right? It all just comes down to money printer go burr. Does it not?
Yeah.
I mean, let me just bring up a little chart ski poo here. Just a second, because when this one showed up on my feed.
Any other questions? Any other genius level questions from our audience of gigabrains? Like WEN moon? At least he had a question mark. He had punctuation.
Yeah.
That's no capitalization on the first letter. But
all right. So we got this one from Raul Paul, perennial Bitcoin and crypto bull. Although I'm not sure I'm not so sure about his take on NFTs. That didn't age that well.
Is he still rocking the
so far? I mean,
mutant ape? Did he take that one off?
Oh, it looks like. I mean, look. What is that? Is that not a CryptoPunk?
It is.
Yeah.
Oh, he moved on.
So anyway, all right. So what we're looking at here is a global M2 money supply number, which is the black line, and then the Bitcoin RHS. What is that?
I have no idea.
Price. I don't know.
Something like price.
And the global M2 supply has been moved forward 12 weeks. So what it's actually so what this means is, and you can see going back all the way to early or to 2023, that every time the monetary supply goes up, 12 weeks later, Bitcoin also goes up. And when the global M2 money supply goes down, 12 weeks later, Bitcoin's price goes down. Okay, and what do we have right here? We have the global M2 money supply. It's risen over the last 12 weeks or so, a lot.
Yeah, it looks like it's bottomed, right? It was in a downward trend. Yeah. It's bottomed and it's starting to go up.
And so, sure enough, I mean, we have seen a little bit of a run here on Bitcoin. So, yeah, this portends well. So, when the nations of the world print money, a lot of it ends up in Bitcoin.
Yeah.
And the price goes up.
Yeah, and we've talked about this before, right?
Okay,
so we've talked a lot about China starting to print money. Germany has taken like historic measures, removing some of its deficit spending cap. Other parts of the EU have promised to spend lots of money as well. We'll see if they're. So yeah. And yeah, it'll help.
All right, and I just one more chart point for you guys, right? So this one also I like. Okay, so the current cycle is the orange, and it's mapped against the previous 3 or 4 cycles, right? And there's some fancy arrows on here.
Is this a logarithmic? This is a logarithmic,
right? Okay, graph. And then they're gonna blend all together, and you can see that where we are right now is kind of just the beginning of. There's still a lot of room to run, right, in this cycle. Okay, so there's your hopium for today. Thank you very much.
Lord have mercy.
I'm out.
I would just like to say, little venting here. I've done a lot of venting, but a little more venting. I've also noticed, this just reminded me of something I've heard of, this kind of like end of the US dollar, or the US dollar is in decline. The reserve currency status is being challenged, and the end of US equity outperformance is beginning. And some of the things that you've just shown, Graham, this kind of like start of money supply increasing, not in the US, right? This is ex-US.
Yeah.
This kind of all plays into Brett Johnston's milkshake theory. And so, yes, the dollar's in decline now, but that's kind of the normal cycle of this, is that countries pull money out of the US, and that cause, and they realize some of their profits, they do some different things. And then if and when it actually gets very, very bad, as in they have to pay off their debts, for example, those debts are denominated in dollars, and they have to get dollars to pay those debts. And there's different ways to do this, but one way is they can print their own money to get to buy dollars to pay off or to roll over their own debts.
So that
it causes the dollar to rise.
It causes the dollar to rise. It also increases money supply.
It also increases money supply. Also, what do they do with all this printed money? A lot of it goes into the U.S. market.
So it pumps equities.
Yeah. And so you see this kind of cycle of like dollar decline, equity decline in the US equity, US dollar decline, and then money printing or crisis, and then they have to get a hold of dollars. Again, all these countries, they owe each other dollars. They owe each other more dollars than the US owes the rest of the world dollars. So
yeah,
done.
All right. Okay, so I think we've come to the conclusion here that all is well in the world of Bitcoin.
Yep.
Keep stacking. We're going up, but
did you buy any on this way down, or were you just kind of sitting on your hands?
I bought a little bit.
Yeah,
a little bit. But
I've got a job. I couldn't focus too much on the markets.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I regret not buying some of these meme coins, I guess. So let's talk about that for a minute, because we got Trump pumped. Trump and Melania both pumped.
This is a pretty wild one, right? Because there were the Trump unlocks.
Yeah. So the Trump meme, the Trump collectible was endowed with some utility. And that utility was that the top 220 holders, get a meeting with Trump. And when that was announced, the price of the Trump coin, pumped by 45%. And that's the face Trump made when it happened.
Yeah, not impressed.
Not impressed. Yeah, well, $14. It got a pretty close. I mean, what was its all-time high? Like 30?
That was like 70.
Okay. Even Melania Trump. Was Melania endowed with some utility as well, or is that just
I think it was probably just beta to Trump.
Beta to Trump. So,
but the crazy thing is, preceding this, right, last weekend.
Yeah.
Oh, we talked about this on the weekly, right? Like there were the Trump unlocks, the Trump tokens unlocking $200 million worth of Trump coins over the next 2 years, every day.
Yeah.
Next 2 years. And so people were like, oh, yeah, this is going to sell off. And it didn't. So, I mean, probably some insiders knew what was going on.
No.
But I will say this, one thing that I found particularly illuminating was from Jordy Alexander in the now on hiatus podcast Steady Lads. Shout out Steady Lads. You guys are awesome. I hope you do episodes at a semi-normal pace. But anyway,
got to say Steady Lads was the template for me for the Token Narrative podcast.
Definitely,
for sure.
I think it showed that there's a lot of. I remember a conversation you and I had, actually, just to complete the tangent, saying how conversational it was, and that they would have not awkward pauses, but just like pauses in conversation that would naturally occur.
Yeah.
And at that time, you didn't really see that in podcasts. I don't even know if you see it now. Those probably get cut out a bit.
Yeah.
Also, just the things that they talk about can get a little blue, probably unacceptable in other podcasts that I'm thinking of right now, but not mentioning. But anyway, in this last episode, which they announced that they were kind of pulling back, he did say this about the Trump coin, which I found interesting. There's a ton of money in the AMM on Meteora, because the team behind the Trump coin just left it there, probably on purpose. And so Jordy said that it would take something like $100 million to push the price of Trump down to like $5. Okay. So again, fairly liquid, and I guess the team behind Trump is doing a great job so far.
Yeah, and I think in general, the meme coin meta has refused to die. A lot of people were probably us included, probably me included, proclaimed meme coins to be dead forever, but they are not dead. So like I came across this article here which has some data showing Pump.fun revenue generated, and like we've seen a pretty decent run up since the lows of, call it, late February. And the levels we're at right now are similar to October.
It's wild.
So greater than all of the summer of last year.
Who is buying and doing all of this still?
That leads us, I think, to our next little discussion point here, which, a lot of people have been speculating that all of this meme coin trading activity is just some kind of money laundering or criminal syndicates,
cabals,
figuring out ways to like generate hype and just like bring in the sheep and slaughter them. So
a lot of slaughtering going on.
Yeah, we had some evidence here. You brought this post.
Yeah, this is a great post. It's very thorough, and it's quite long. Interesting to read if you want, but the gist of it is they reviewed a bunch of data, and it looks like something maybe, at least in my mind, I was imagining something like the North Korean hackers. Obviously not on that level because they're doing like big boy stuff, but lower versions of that, right? Like smaller gangs with maybe less technical skill than the North Koreans, but of that in that direction are using Pump.fun and other things to max extract from people, and it's just like they're blatant scams.
Yeah,
maybe even bordering on just like straight up illegal. I'm not exactly sure what laws they would fall under, but it's quite targeted, and it makes me very. I was already hesitant to get in anything Pump.fun related or that from that kind of ilk, but this kind of stuff makes me even more reticent to do this.
Yeah, for sure. But there does seem to be, people who are willing to play this game right now. If you just look at the numbers, the revenue generated on Pump.fun, there's got to be people entering who are trying to trade these, and I think that's just a signal that the crypto casino, there's like, it's not dead. People want to bet in a crypto casino, and it is.
But this is not a casino. This is like a shakedown. This is like you go to a private game, and as you're playing, they pull out guns and are like, "Okay, now just give me your money."
Yeah.
Or the cards are fixed or whatever.
Exactly.
Right?
And yet there's still a steady stream of people willing to play that game.
Yeah, but then are they getting burned and then leaving?
Yeah.
That ain't good.
Yeah. So I mean, maybe some people are.
But nobody wins. We know the stats on it,
exactly.
Right? It's like, what is it, like less than 1% make more than $100?
Yeah.
And then it's like 0.1% make more than $10,000.
Yeah, so
it's just like,
how is this still? There's still 20. What is it in this article? I think it said 30 to 40,000 tokens launched per day still on Pump.fun.
I mean, I get it. Like I get it from the casino angle, as in, I've had lots of conversations with people like, well, I don't get casinos. Why would you go there? You lose money. It's entertainment, and often it can be cheaper than, going to see a movie, for example.
Yeah.
You play all day and drink and all that kind of stuff. So I can see that from that angle. Pump.fun could be quite fun, especially for, I imagine, my Zoomer friends, my Zoomer crypto bros. But when you see that a lot of this is like just pure quasi criminal activity, I don't know.
Yeah.
Also, do you remember that conversation we had a while ago? It was you, me, and maybe it was Andre about whether Pump.fun was net positive or negative for the space. I said it was net negative. To me, this gives me more evidence that I was right, and that this is different than like a Binance or a centralized exchange. I mean, maybe these kinds of things are going on centralized exchanges, but the centralized exchange itself is heavily incentivized to make sure this doesn't happen because they don't want their users to get burned and never be able to participate.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I feel like
Pump.fun also.
But it's taking on this mantle of decentralized. I don't even. What can they do though, right? Because all these techniques are all on chain, right? Like they're making these deploying wallets and doing all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know if they really are in a place to combat that. No. I wonder. Could you imagine? Think about it like this: what if Pump.fun didn't exist for this past 18 months? How long? However it's been. Yeah. Would we have a lot more people who had a lot more money who are still in the space? because they would have bet on other coins. They could have bet on the same meme coin, but instead on Binance or something like that, and they wouldn't have gotten max extracted.
Yeah, yeah. Or maybe more money would have gone into power.
Yeah, like meme coin projects, right?
And, like those projects would have done something with that. Yeah, we might be a little bit further ahead here in the
altcoin space, right?
In the altcoin space. Yeah. So it is a bit sad.
Neil asks in the chat, could meme coins be like the NFTs of last cycle? Do you think this goes to the point though, do you think meme coins are ever going to go away?
They feel more permanent than NFTs to me.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, I mean, because Bitcoin itself is kind of a meme coin.
It is, for sure.
It just feels like a better product market. What people are after is fungible tokens, not non-fungible tokens.
Well, I do think NFTs have their place. I think we will see. I've stood by this and been wrong for almost a year, but I do think that NFTs will have a resurgence, but it'll look really different.
Not in the form that they are with profile picture.
No. There'll be businesses. There'll be IP businesses like Pudgy Penguin's thing and stuff like that. By the way, Pudgy Penguin guy, I saw on a clip was saying that their IP is going to go up. Is going to stand with the biggest in the business, Hello Kitty and Mickey Mouse and stuff like that. I don't know, man. Anyway, sorry.
Well, I think we've pretty much covered everything on the docket here today. Did you want to talk about this Singapore thing?
Yeah. I've been on max rant mode today. It's venting.
Keep going. This is a perfect opportunity.
Middle-aged man shouts at clouds. Listening to a lot of podcasts as I usually do, but I've been disagreeing more than I usually do. And so obviously the dollar going down, end of American exceptionalism. I disagree with some of that. But another thing that I've seen, a lot of the narratives, especially in crypto, for some reason, crypto bros love China. I don't get it. I do not get the max love for China that you see in the crypto community.
What's wrong with China?
What? I mean, and it's not just in this respect. It's like I see it. For example, their cities are better. Aspects of their government are better. How they run businesses are better. Go on and on and on and on. And I kind of disagree with almost all of that. But in this case, it's about the trade wars, right? That America is impaling itself on these tariffs, and that China's going to fare better than America. And I think most people in finance would agree that this is just not true. right? Like the country, the country that is buying stuff is in a much better position than the country that has to sell stuff, because they're especially with the amounts that we buy, right? Like, I think Michael Kyle said he was talking to a prominent economist, and they did a study. Lakshmi, that's what it was. They did a study on the amount of goods that America gets from China is actually much higher than what it appears to be because of all the trickery that they do, like sending it to Vietnam and sending it to Malaysia, and then sending it to America through these different routes. Up to 35% of what China sells eventually makes its way to America. The rest of the world can't absorb that. As in, they can't absorb this like tsunami of Chinese plastic volleyballs and cheap cars and stuff like that. I just can't. And so I think that the balance here between America and China is not as dire as a lot of what I see in crypto. And so, to the point, this tweet. This is the wife of the third prime minister of Singapore, and she reposted an article about Xi Jinping, basically calling him out for being kind of a bully. And I think, and there's no way that she did this post without it being heavily vetted. I just don't see how this could happen. Basically, kind of making a public Singapore, I think, making a semi-public statement saying who they are on side with, right? And it's not China. And there are many reasons, but one of the reasons is that China is a bully, and their policies are kind of heavy-handed, and that's been true for a long time. So again, I really liked this post, and it made me happy to see that there was at least some evidence that leadership in Southeast Asia is signaling where they fall on this kind of reordering of global trade.
Yeah, I'm just trying to grasp what this has to do with Bitcoin.
What would this have to do with Bitcoin? I mean, the U.S. is trying to, as Besant has said, and others have said before him for many years, make countries choose a side, China or America, and then there'll be two spheres of influence. And if Asia, especially like hubs like Singapore and Japan, side with America, then that sphere of influence is smaller. How would that have an effect on Bitcoin? I'm not exactly sure. China has at least superficially disengaged from Bitcoin, right? They're still in a. I've heard that this is like on the ground. This is not true. It's one of these facts of life in China where the government says something, but then everyone else knows that you can go against it. Presumably it would help though, because I do know that a lot of Chinese wealthy people, they buy Bitcoin, and Tether and stuff like that to get their capital out of China.
So the more isolated China becomes, the more people in China want to find ways to get their capital. I mean,
Probably.
does that make sense?
My guess, though, is that, well, I don't want to get too political, but I think it will probably come to some kind of reasonable standoff. And it won't, at least I hope it doesn't get too bad on too Cold War-ish, you know what I'm talking about? But so definitely in that scenario, right? Like any kind of conflict with that, you'd imagine an asset like Bitcoin only gained from it. Gold certainly has gained from it. I listened to a couple of people who said that, I think I mentioned on episode that a non-trivial amount of the gold that's being bought by China is not from the government; it's from rich citizens.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I feel like it's actually probably the majority.
Yeah.
It's not
Yeah, that's what I've heard.
Yeah. All right. I think we can wrap it up there, unless you have anything else you'd like to share, David.
Anything else I'd like to share? I'll be in Dubai next week for Token 2049. I'll be wearing my usual MAGA red hat. It's not a MAGA hat, but it's kind of like that MAGA red.
You'll be handing out some golden tickets.
I'll be handing out some golden tickets. You want a golden ticket?
What's the top prize?
Top prize is $1,000 worth of Bitcoin in today's money, but you hold that for 10 years. $100,000?
$100,000?
$100 million? I don't know. A lot of BTC.
Very unlikely it'll be less than that.
Oh God, no. I would find that very, very, very unlikely. Yeah. So find me or another Bitcoin.com member and ask for a golden ticket. I wish I had one with me so I could show you the camera, but I don't. We gave them all out last week. So yeah, that'll be fun.
All right. Nice. Looking forward to the content coming out of there. And, you've got some good interviews lined up. So
yeah, I gotta do my homework on some of these because quite smart fellas.
All right. Okay, let's end it there. Thanks everyone for joining us on Bitcoin.com's Token Narratives. See you next week.